Beneath the sand between your toes, beneath the waves lapping at the shore, there's a secret the Earth has kept for millennia. An entire city, once bustling with life, now buried under layers of time and tectonic shifts. This isn't the plot of a fantasy novel. It's real. The ground we walk on isn't as solid as it seems. Continents drift like slow-motion icebergs, colliding, pulling apart, and in their wake, they've swallowed civilizations whole. Think about that for a moment. The same forces that built mountains and carved oceans also erased cultures, leaving behind only whispers in the form of scattered pottery, half-collapsed walls, or legends passed down through generations. What if I told you that some of history's greatest mysteries aren't hidden in dusty tombs or encrypted manuscripts, but right beneath us, locked in the Earth's restless crust? From the sunken ruins of ancient Alexandria to the lost cities of the Indus Valley, entire societies have vanished not because of war or famine, but because the planet itself rearranged the stage beneath their feet. This is the untold story of how the drift of continents didn't just shape our geography, it shaped our history, burying evidence of human ingenuity under layers of rock and sediment. So how does a civilization simply disappear? Not by catastrophe, not by conquest, but by the slow, relentless movement of tectonic plates. Over thousands of years, coastlines have drowned, land masses have fractured, and what was once dry ground now lies at the bottom of the sea. The clues are still there, waiting for us to piece them together. Today, we're going on a journey to uncover these lost worlds. We'll explore how geology and archaeology collide, revealing stories of cities that thrived only to be swallowed by the Earth. By the end, you'll never look at the ground beneath your feet the same way again, because the truth is the planet has been writing its own history, one shift at a time. And we're only just beginning to read it. The ground beneath our feet is never truly still. Earth's crust isn't a single, unbroken shell. It's a patchwork of massive plates, each one slowly but constantly on the move. Picture a pot of thick soup simmering on a stove. The heat rising from below causes the liquid to churn in slow, swirling currents. Now imagine that same process happening deep within the Earth, where the intense heat of the mantle creates currents of molten rock that drag the plates above them along for the ride. This is the engine behind continental drift, the same force that over millions of years has pulled continents apart, smashed them together, and reshaped the face of our planet. The story of this discovery begins with a scientist named Alfred Wegener. In the early 20th century, he noticed something peculiar. The coastlines of South America and Africa fit together like puzzle pieces. Fossils of identical prehistoric plants and animals were found on continents now separated by vast oceans. He proposed a radical idea that the continents weren't fixed in place, but had once been joined in a supercontinent he called Pangaea. At the time, most geologists dismissed his theory, but Wegener was right. Today, we know that Earth's crust is divided into about a dozen major plates, each one grinding against, sliding under, or drifting away from its neighbors at a speed no faster than your fingernails grow. What keeps these plates in motion? Two key forces. First, mantle convection, those slow, churning currents of molten rock that act like a conveyor belt beneath the crust. Second, subduction zones, where one plate is forced beneath another, sinking back into the mantle like a colossal tectonic recycling system. When two plates collide, they can push up mountain ranges like the Himalayas. When they pull apart, they create rifts that may one day become new oceans. And when they slide past each other, the friction can trigger earthquakes, a sudden reminder of the immense forces at work beneath the surface. This isn't just geology, it's a story of destruction and creation. The same process that builds new land can also erase it. Coastal cities may gradually sink as plates shift, or be swallowed when subduction zones drag entire regions underwater. Entire islands have vanished this way, not in a sudden cataclysm but over centuries, as the sea claims what the Earth's movement has surrendered. Ancient ports that once thrived as centers of trade now lie submerged, their ruins hidden beneath layers of sediment. The drift of continents isn't just a force of nature, it's a silent architect of history, burying the past even as it shapes the future. Long before scientists mapped tectonic plates or understood continental drift, ancient cultures were telling stories about lands that vanished beneath the waves. Take Plato's account of Atlantis, a mighty civilization swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. For centuries, scholars dismissed it as pure fiction. But what if these tales weren't just imagination? What if they were distant memories passed down through generations of real geological catastrophes? Consider the legend of Kumari Kandam, a lost continent described in Tamil folklore as a vast landmass connecting India and Sri Lanka, now submerged. Modern sonar mapping reveals a ghostly land bridge beneath the Indian Ocean, a shallow shelf that would have been above water during the last ice age. Or take Doggerland, a once thriving Mesolithic landscape that connected Britain to Europe, now lying beneath the North Sea. Fishermen still pull up ancient tools and mammoth bones in their nets, tangible proof of a world that vanished as glaciers melted and seas rose. These stories share eerie similarities. Flood myths appear in nearly every ancient culture, from the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh to the Aboriginal Dreamtime. The details vary, but the core remains: a great deluge, a shattered land, a people forced to flee. Scientists now recognize these as possible echoes of post-glacial sea level rise, which drowned coastal settlements worldwide around 12,000 years ago. The rising waters didn't just change coastlines, they rewrote human history, scattering populations and birthing new migrations. Then there's Zillandia, a mostly submerged continent east of Australia. Though 94% underwater today, its highest peaks form New Zealand's islands. Maori oral traditions speak of ancestral lands that sank long ago, while geological surveys confirm Zealandia was largely above water until tectonic stretching thinned its crust. These aren't coincidences, they're clues. Oral traditions often preserve truths that outlast stone tablets or written records, encoded in metaphor but rooted in real events. The line between myth and geology blurs in places like Helike, a Greek city obliterated overnight by an earthquake and tsunami in 373 BCE. Ancient writers described how the sea swallowed Helike whole, leaving no trace. For centuries, historians debated its location until archaeologists found its ruins buried under coastal sediment, exactly where the old texts claimed. Here, legend and science don't just overlap, they confirm each other. What makes these connections so fascinating isn't just the science, it's the human impulse to make sense of disaster. When the ground shakes or the sea rises, cultures weave explanations: angry gods, moral failings, divine punishment. But beneath the symbolism lies a kernel of truth. The earth moves and civilizations pay the price. These stories are more than folklore, they're survival memories, warnings etched into collective consciousness. Today, we decode them not with oracle bones, but with sonar and seismic data. Yet the message remains the same: the land beneath us is alive, and its shifts shape not just mountains, but the fate of every society built upon it. Among the most enduring legends of sunken lands is the story of Lemuria, a lost continent said to have vanished beneath the Indian Ocean. Unlike Atlantis, which emerged from ancient philosophy, Lemuria was born in the halls of 19th century science. British zoologist Philip Sclater coined the term in 1864, puzzled by a curious pattern: lemur fossils found in Madagascar and India, but nowhere in between. To explain this gap, he proposed a land bridge, a vast continent that once connected these regions before sinking into the ocean. The idea caught fire among scientists of the era, offering an elegant solution to mysteries of biogeography. But Lemuria's journey from scientific theory to myth is where things get fascinating. As plate tectonics replaced land bridges in the 20th century, geologists dismissed Sclater's hypothesis. Yet the legend refused to die. Theosophists and occultists reimagined Lemuria as a spiritual homeland, a paradise of advanced beings whose ruins might still lie hidden. Today, this blend of science and speculation lingers in reports of underwater structures off India's coast, like the so-called Adam's Bridge, a chain of shoals some claim are remnants of an ancient causeway built by Lemuria's inhabitants. Satellite images of geometric shapes near Tamil Nadu's coast have fueled further speculation, though mainstream archaeologists attribute these to natural formations. Then there's the Yonaguni Monument off Japan, often mistakenly tied to Lemuria. This massive underwater structure, with its terraced steps and right angles, has sparked debate since its discovery in the 1980s. While some insist it's a sunken city, geologists point to sandstone's tendency to fracture in clean lines. The truth may lie somewhere in between natural processes shaped by human hands, like quarries or modified rock formations submerged by rising seas. What makes Lemuria compelling isn't just the science or the myths, it's the human desire to fill gaps in our history. When faced with the unknown, we weave stories. The same impulse that led Sclater to imagine a sunken continent now drives modern explorers to scan ocean floors for lost cities, and sometimes the line between discovery and legend blurs. In 2001, India's National Institute of Oceanography identified submerged ruins near the Gulf of Combat, potentially dating back 9,000 years. While skeptics argue these could be natural formations or much younger settlements, the possibility lingers: could fragments of forgotten civilizations still lie beneath the waves? Lemuria teaches us that every era interprets the past through its own lens. 19th century scientists saw land bridges, mystics envisioned enlightened ancestors. Today's researchers probe sonar maps for geological truths. The lost continent may never have existed as Sclater imagined, but its legacy endures, a testament to how science, myth, and human curiosity intertwine in our search for what lies beneath. Imagine walking from London to Amsterdam without getting your feet wet. 8,000 years ago, you could have done exactly that. Stretching across what's now the North Sea lay Doggerland, a vast, fertile plain teeming with life. This wasn't just a land bridge, it was a thriving ecosystem, home to forests, rivers, and marshes where herds of reindeer roamed and Mesolithic hunter-gatherers built their camps. Today, the only remnants of this lost world lie beneath 40 meters of water, scattered across the seabed like pieces of a forgotten puzzle. Fishermen trawling the North Sea have pulled up more than just fish for centuries. Their nets occasionally bring ashore ancient artifacts, flint tools, carved bone harpoons, even the occasional mammoth tooth. These aren't random fragments. They're clues to a landscape that vanished as the last ice age retreated. As glaciers melted, sea levels rose at a rate of about 2 centimeters per year, slow by human standards, but relentless. Over centuries, Doggerland's forests drowned, its marshes turned to tidal flats, and finally, around 6,500 BCE, a catastrophic tsunami triggered by an underwater landslide off Norway's coast delivered the final blow. The waves submerged what little remained, cutting Britain off from Europe for good. What makes Doggerland so remarkable isn't just its scale, it's the intimacy of the discoveries. Archaeologists mapping the seabed have found hearths where families once cooked meals, footprints preserved in ancient mudflats, and even submerged river systems that still mirror modern drainage patterns. One particularly haunting find, a deer antler carved with geometric patterns, lost by its owner millennia ago, now resting on the ocean floor. These artifacts don't just tell us people lived here, they reveal how they lived. We know they hunted aurochs and wild boar, gathered hazelnuts, and likely traded flint across vast networks. But Doggerland's story isn't just about the past, it's a warning for the future. The forces that drowned this landscape, rising seas, shifting coastlines, aren't locked in prehistory. As climate change accelerates, modern cities face similar threats. The difference, we're watching it happen in real time. There's a poignant symmetry between Mesolithic families retreating before the rising waters and today's island nations preparing for submersion. Doggerland reminds us that the Earth's changes aren't just geological events, they're human ones, rewriting lives, cultures, and memories with every inch of sea level rise. The next time you look at a map of Europe, try to erase the North Sea in your mind. Picture instead the rolling hills, the river valleys, the campsites now silent under the waves. Doggerland isn't just a lost world, it's a mirror, reflecting the fragile relationship between humanity and the ground beneath us. And as the planet continues to shift, its lessons feel more urgent than ever. Off the coast of modern-day Gujarat, where the Arabian Sea meets the Gulf of Kutch, lies one of archaeology's most tantalizing mysteries, the submerged ruins of Dwarka. According to Hindu texts like the Mahabharata and the Puranas, this was no ordinary city. It was the glittering capital of Lord Krishna's kingdom, a metropolis of gold and gemstones protected by towering gates and bustling with grand palaces. The ancient texts even describe its dramatic end, how the sea swallowed Dwarka after Krishna's death, as if the ocean itself mourned his passing. For centuries, scholars dismissed this as poetic metaphor until divers began pulling up stones from the seabed. Marine archaeologists working in the area have uncovered something extraordinary. Lying beneath 60 feet of water, scattered across the ocean floor, are massive stone blocks, some weighing hundreds of pounds, arranged in geometric patterns that defy natural explanation. Pottery shards, carved pillars, and even ancient anchors have been recovered, their styles dating back to at least 1500 BC, precisely the era when Krishna's Dwarka was said to thrive. One particularly striking discovery, a stone structure resembling a fortified wall, its layout eerily similar to descriptions in the Mahabharata. These aren't random artifacts, they're fragments of a sophisticated settlement, one that clearly thrived before the waters claimed it. But here's where the debate ignites. While believers argue these ruins are the literal remains of Krishna's city, skeptics propose a more measured interpretation. Could this be a later port city, perhaps one inspired by the legend? Geological surveys reveal that this coastline has shifted dramatically over millennia. Rising sea levels, combined with tectonic subsidence, the same slow sinking that claimed Doggerland, could have drowned a thriving harbor town, its story later woven into myth. The truth may lie somewhere in between. The ruins might not be a celestial city of gold, but they're almost certainly evidence of an ancient civilization that grew wealthy from maritime trade, only to vanish beneath the waves. What makes Dwarka so fascinating isn't just the clash of science and scripture, it's how neatly the pieces fit. The Mahabharata describes Dwarka's location near the confluence of the Gomati River and the sea. Today, underwater surveys have identified a paleochannel, the ghost of an ancient riverbed running straight through the submerged ruins. The texts speak of a great flood. Sediment cores show evidence of sudden inundation around 3,500 years ago. Even the artifacts align. A seal depicting a three-headed animal, reminiscent of Krishna's legendary steed, was found among the ruins. Dwarka forces us to reconsider how myths are born. Perhaps they're not pure invention, but fractured memories of real events, polished by generations of retelling. When fishermen still whisper of glimpsing golden spires beneath the waves on clear mornings, it's a reminder that some boundaries between history and legend, geology and faith are as fluid as the sea itself. And as the ocean slowly gives up its secrets one stone at a time, we're left to wonder how many other stories, now dismissed as fantasy, might be waiting beneath the next shift of the tides. Just off the southern tip of Japan, where the Pacific Ocean meets the East China Sea, lies one of the underwater world's most hotly debated mysteries, the Yonaguni Monument. Discovered in the 1980s by a local diver, this sprawling complex of step terraces, sharp angles, and what appear to be carved staircases plunges down to depths of 80 feet. At first glance, it looks like the ruins of an ancient city, complete with what some claim are plazas, temples, and even a stadium. But is this really the work of human hands, or something far older, a geological oddity shaped by the relentless forces of tectonic movement? Geologists point to the region's turbulent tectonic history. Yonaguni sits atop the collision zone between the Philippine Sea Plate and the Eurasian Plate, where earthquakes and underwater landslides are common. The sandstone formations here naturally fracture into clean, angular blocks due to seismic stress and erosion. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura, who has studied the site for decades, argues that the monument's steps align perfectly with the rock's natural bedding planes, while its walls show no tool marks or mortar hallmarks of human construction. Even the so-called carvings resemble known examples of underwater erosion patterns found elsewhere. Yet other researchers aren't so quick to dismiss the possibility of human influence. Archaeologist Robert Schock, known for his work on the Sphinx, notes that some features, like a pair of round holes that resemble mooring posts, don't easily fit natural explanations. Nearby, divers have found what appear to be stone tools and pottery fragments, though critics argue these could have drifted from later settlements. The most compelling case comes from the monument's layout. Its terraces and channels mirror the design of ancient Okinawan castles, suggesting a possible cultural connection. The debate takes on new urgency when you consider the region's geology. Around 10,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, sea levels were nearly 400 feet lower. Yonaguni would have been part of a much larger landmass, possibly inhabited. Could these formations be the remnants of a prehistoric civilization, one that thrived before rising waters claimed it? Or are we seeing the human tendency to find patterns, even intentional design, in nature's random artistry? What makes Yonaguni so captivating isn't just the science, it's the way it challenges our assumptions. If even one of these structures is proven man-made, it would rewrite the timeline of human achievement in the Pacific. But if they're entirely natural, they're no less remarkable. A testament to how Earth's movements can sculpt landscapes that look meticulously planned. Every dive here feels like flipping through the pages of a mystery novel where the ending hasn't been written yet. And perhaps that's the point. Some secrets aren't meant to be solved, just pondered, as the currents shift and the stones keep their silence. The Sahara Desert wasn't always a sea of sand. 12,000 years ago, this was a land of lakes and grasslands, where hippos wallowed in rivers and ancient hunters tracked herds of gazelle across lush savannas. Today, the only reminders of that vanished world lie buried beneath dunes, lost cities, forgotten graves, and the silent echoes of civilizations that thrived when the Sahara was green. How did one of Earth's most extreme landscapes transform so dramatically? The answer lies in the dance of tectonic plates and the whim of climate, a 1-2 punch that turned paradise into a desert and buried its stories under centuries of dust. At the heart of this transformation is the African plate's slow collision with Eurasia. As these plates pushed together, they lifted the Atlas Mountains, creating a rain shadow that blocked moisture from the Mediterranean. Meanwhile, subtle shifts in Earth's orbit altered monsoon patterns, starving the region of rain over millennia. But the most startling clue to the Sahara's past lies in the Gobero archaeological site in Niger. Here, beneath the scorching sun, paleontologists uncovered something extraordinary, a graveyard dating back 7,000 years where skeletons rest beside harpoons and pottery, their bones telling a story of people who fished in vanished lakes and hunted where only sand exists today. The artifacts at Gobero paint a vivid picture. Giant tortoise shells litter ancient hearths, suggesting communal feasts. Stone tools bear traces of wild grains, hinting at early experiments in cultivation. Most haunting are the burial sites, a woman and 2 children curled together, their remains stained with red ochre, as if prepared for a journey to another world. These weren't nomads barely surviving, they were communities rooted in a fertile landscape, one that sustained them for generations before the desert claimed it all. What makes the Sahara's lost civilizations so poignant is the sheer speed of their disappearance. Sediment cores reveal that the change from savanna to desert didn't take centuries, it happened within decades. As the rains failed, lakes evaporated into salt flats, rivers shrank to trickles, and the people of Gobero likely faced an impossible choice: stay and starve, or wander into the unknown. Their fate mirrors modern climate crises, where shifting weather patterns uproot entire populations. The Sahara's bones whisper a warning that the ground beneath us isn't just shaped by geology, but by the fragile balance of wind, water, and time. Yet the desert hasn't given up all its secrets. Satellite imaging has revealed ghostly outlines beneath the sand paleochannels, the skeletons of ancient rivers that once crisscrossed the region. Some stretch for hundreds of miles, their paths still marked by stone tools and fossilized roots. In Egypt's western desert, radar has detected what may be the ruins of a pharaonic-era city, its walls swallowed by dunes after the Nile shifted course. These discoveries suggest that the Sahara isn't just a graveyard of civilizations, it's a hidden archive, waiting for the right technology to decode its stories. Standing in the Sahara today, it's hard to imagine hippos wading through wetlands or children laughing by freshwater springs. But the evidence is there, locked in the geology, the archaeology, and even the genes of modern Saharan peoples, whose DNA carries traces of those who adapted when the water disappeared. The desert's lesson is clear: civilizations rise and fall not just by human hands, but by the slow, inexorable movements of the planet itself. And as climate change reshapes our world once more, the Sahara's buried past feels less like ancient history and more like a map to our future. Off the coast of southern Greece, where the Aegean Sea shimmers under the Mediterranean sun, lies a secret older than the pyramid's Pavlopetri. Beneath just 10 feet of crystal-clear water, the bones of a 5,000-year-old city stretch across the seabed, its grid of streets, courtyards, and tombs so intact you could almost navigate them with a map. This isn't some scattered wreck or a handful of sunken pillars. Pavlopetri is the world's oldest known submerged city, a perfectly preserved window into Bronze Age life, frozen in time by the same forces that destroyed it. What makes Pavlopetri extraordinary isn't just its age, it's the eerie completeness of its remains. Archaeologists have mapped 2- and 3-room houses, a central marketplace, even a complex drainage system that reveals an advanced understanding of urban planning. Ceramic loom weights still sit where weavers left them, as if the inhabitants stepped out for a moment and never returned. The city's layout mirrors descriptions of Homeric cities, suggesting this could be the real-life inspiration for myths that echoed through millennia. But the most haunting discovery, dozens of undisturbed graves, their occupants buried with pottery and jewelry, now silently guarded by schools of fish instead of mourners. The story of how Pavlopetri drowned reads like a geological thriller. Unlike cities lost to sudden tsunamis or volcanic eruptions, this one succumbed to a slower, more insidious fate. Around 1000 BC, seismic activity along the Hellenic Arc, a tectonic boundary where the African plate grinds beneath Eurasia, caused the land to sink incrementally. Rising sea levels, fueled by the end of the last ice age, did the rest. Over centuries, the Mediterranean crept into streets and homes, swallowing Pavlopetri so gently that its walls never toppled. The result, a submerged time capsule where even ancient footprints pressed into clay floors remain visible. Today, Pavlopetri offers more than just ruins. It's a laboratory for understanding how civilizations adapt to environmental crisis. Analysis of sediment layers reveals that residents tried to combat the encroaching water, raising floors and reinforcing walls before finally abandoning their homes. Their struggles mirror modern coastal cities battling sea level rise, proving that humanity's dance with geology is older than recorded history. And there's a twist. Recent surveys suggest less than a third of the city has been excavated. Who knows what treasures or warnings still lie buried beneath the sand? Standing on the shore above Pavlopetri, it's hard not to feel the weight of time. The same waves that lap at your ankles once drowned an entire way of life. Yet in that loss, there's a strange gift. The chance to walk, quite literally, through the streets of the past, where every crumbling wall whispers the same truth. The ground beneath us is never as permanent as it seems. And sometimes the earth doesn't just shape history, it swallows it whole, leaving only bubbles rising to the surface as clues. Beneath the turquoise waters of the Java Sea and the Gulf of Thailand lies a lost world that once connected islands into a single, sprawling continent, Sunderland. 20,000 years ago, at the height of the last ice age, this wasn't just a landmass, it was a paradise twice the size of India, with vast river systems, dense rainforests, and savannas teeming with wildlife. Early humans thrived here, hunting giant pangolins and stegodons, ancient relatives of elephants, while carving out some of the first coastal settlements in history. Then the ice melted. Sea levels rose nearly 400 feet, drowning an area larger than modern-day Europe and scattering its people like seeds on the wind. But their legacy didn't disappear. It's written in our genes, our languages, and the stories of cultures stretching from Madagascar to Polynesia. Geneticists tracing mitochondrial DNA have uncovered a startling pattern. Nearly all modern Southeast Asians, from the highlands of Laos to the islands of the Philippines, carry markers linking them to Sunderland's ancient populations. Even the indigenous peoples of Australia and New Guinea share genetic ties to these drowned lands, suggesting epic migrations as rising waters forced communities inland or onto makeshift rafts. Linguists see echoes of this exodus too. The Austronesian language family, spoken by over 300 million people today from Hawaii to Madagascar, likely originated here before spreading across the Pacific in what may have been humanity's first great maritime diaspora. But the most compelling evidence isn't just in labs or textbooks, it's on the ocean floor. Sonar surveys have revealed submerged river valleys snaking across the Sunda shelf, their channels still visible beneath layers of sediment. In one astonishing discovery, divers off Indonesia's coast found a prehistoric stone tool workshop at a depth of 200 feet. Its axes and scrapers perfectly preserved as if the workers had just stepped away. Nearby, the remains of a freshwater swamp forest complete with fossilized tree stumps paint a vivid picture of the ecosystems that vanished beneath the waves. What makes Sunken, and more than just a geological curiosity, is how it reshaped human civilization. The flooding didn't just displace people, it catalyzed innovation. Faced with shrinking coastlines, communities developed new technologies, outrigger canoes for survival, advanced fishing techniques, and perhaps even the first experiments in agriculture. Some researchers speculate that the legend of Atlantis, often attributed to Plato, might actually be a distorted memory of Sunderland's submergence, passed down through generations of traders along the Silk Road. The true scale of this lost world's influence is still coming to light. Recent studies of ancient pollen samples show that Sunderland's forests began collapsing not just from rising seas, but from human activity, early deforestation that altered the region's climate long before industrial times. It's a sobering parallel to modern environmental crises, where the interplay of natural forces and human choices can rewrite the map in ways no one anticipates. Standing on the shores of Bali or Borneo today, it's hard to grasp that the ocean before you was once a valley, that the waves hide mountains where your ancestors might have stood. Yet every time a fisherman pulls up a 4,000-year-old pottery shard in his net, or a geneticist decodes another strand of DNA, Sunken and resurfaces, not as a myth, but as a living chapter in the story of us all. The continents may drift and the seas may rise, but the past never truly sinks. It just waits silently for us to listen. Earthquakes don't just shake the ground, they rewrite history. Few places illustrate this better than the ancient Greek city of Helike. In 373 BCE, without warning, the earth split open beneath its streets. The historian Diodorus Siculus described how a vast chasm swallowed buildings whole, while a tsunami surged inland, drowning everything left standing. By morning, Helike had vanished, its ruins buried under layers of silt and seawater so completely that later writers debated whether it had ever existed at all. For centuries, Helike became a cautionary tale until archaeologists found its remains in the 1980s, exactly where the ancient texts claimed they'd be. The discovery wasn't just a victory for science, it was proof that continental drift doesn't always move at a glacial pace. Sometimes it strikes with the fury of a single night. Helike's fate wasn't unique. Half a world away in Jamaica, the pirate haven of Port Royal met a similar end in 1692. One moment, it was the wickedest city on earth, a bustling port where gold-laden ships docked beside taverns packed with privateers. The next, a massive earthquake liquefied the sandy ground beneath it, causing entire neighborhoods to slide into the Caribbean. Contemporary accounts tell of buildings swallowed by the sea and streets vanishing, as if God had pressed his thumb upon them. Today, divers exploring the submerged ruins find pocket watches frozen at the moment of impact, wine bottles still corked, and even a preserved loaf of bread, snapshots of daily life abruptly cut short. What ties these tragedies together isn't just bad luck, it's geology in action. Both cities sat atop volatile fault lines where tectonic plates grind against each other like misaligned gears. Helike lay near the Corinth Rift, where the Aegean microplate pulls away from Eurasia, creating tension that occasionally snaps. Port Royal perched above the boundary between the Caribbean and Gonave plates, a hotspot for seismic unrest. In both cases, the Earth's restless crust didn't just tremble, it rearranged itself, dropping entire cities below sea level in minutes. But here's the chilling part, these events weren't anomalies. Their previews, modern megacities like Istanbul, Tokyo, and Los Angeles sit atop similar faults, their skyscrapers just as vulnerable as He-Like's marble temples. The difference: today's scientists can read the warning signs, the slow creep of tectonic strain, the subtle uplift of coastal land, and calculate the odds of history repeating itself. When the next big one hits, will we be remembered as another He-Like, a cautionary tale for future archaeologists? Or will we learn from these sunken cities that the ground beneath us is never truly still? The ruins whisper their answer with every shifting plate, every tide that laps at their drowned walls. The only question is whether we're listening. Some of history's most dramatic disappearances didn't come from slow shifts in the Earth's crust, they arrived with a roar. Take the volcanic island of Thera, modern-day Santorini, around 1600 BC. One moment it was the heart of Minoan trade, a thriving hub of art and architecture. The next, a cataclysmic eruption 10 times more powerful than Krakatoa tore the island apart, sending tsunamis racing across the Aegean. The blast buried the port city of Akrotiri under 60 feet of ash, preserving it like a Bronze Age Pompeii. But unlike Pompeii, this wasn't just a local tragedy. Thera's explosion triggered a chain reaction. Ash blotted out the sun for years, crops failed, and the mighty Minoan civilization, Europe's first advanced culture, crumbled into legend. What's chilling is how ordinary the geology behind this disaster was. Thera sits atop a subduction zone where the African plate slides beneath the Aegean microplate. As the sinking plate melted, magma built up in chambers below the island until, like a shaken soda bottle, the pressure became too much. But volcanoes don't just bury cities, they can sink them too. When Indonesia's Krakatoa erupted in 1883, it didn't just explode, it collapsed, vaporizing 2/3 of the island and dragging surrounding coastlines underwater. Similar fates may have claimed lost cities in the Pacific, where oral traditions speak of lands that fell into the fire beneath the sea. The link between continental drift and volcanic violence runs deeper than eruptions. Tectonic movement doesn't just create volcanoes, it moves them. Over millennia, the Hawaiian Islands have formed as the Pacific Plate drifts over a stationary hotspot, leaving a trail of dormant volcanoes in its wake. Imagine a civilization built on one of those islands, unaware that their home is slowly being carried away from its lifeblood of molten rock until the eruptions stop, the soil withers, and the land becomes unsustainable. This isn't hypothetical. On Easter Island, deforestation and dwindling resources, partly due to volcanic soil exhaustion, may have contributed to societal collapse. Yet volcanoes also give back what they take. The same ash that smothered Akrotiri enriched soils across the Mediterranean, fueling future civilizations. Thera's eruption may have ended the Minoans, but it indirectly nourished the rise of classical Greece. Even the myth of Atlantis, often linked to Thera, reflects this duality: destruction and rebirth woven into a single story. Today, seismic monitors and satellite radar watch restless volcanoes like Italy's Campi Flegrei, a supervolcano near Naples that's uplifted by 30 inches since the 1950s. Beneath it, the African plate grinds against Eurasia, building pressure that could one day unleash another Thera-scale disaster. The lesson written in ash and pumice is clear. Continental drift doesn't just move land, it primes it for catastrophe. And when the Earth decides to rewrite the map, it doesn't always do so quietly. Sometimes it screams. The Earth hides its secrets in two very different ways, one slow and creeping, the other sudden and violent. On one hand, there's climate change, a patient force that reshapes coastlines and starves rivers over centuries. On the other, tectonics, the planet's restless shifting, which can erase cities in a single night. Take the Indus Valley Civilization, one of history's most sophisticated urban cultures. Around 4,000 years ago, their meticulously planned cities, with grid streets and advanced drainage, were abandoned, not by war or invasion, but by a fickle climate. Monsoon patterns shifted, rivers like the Gagga-Hakra dried up, and farming became impossible. The people didn't vanish, they scattered, adapting to smaller villages or migrating east. Here, the culprit wasn't the ground moving beneath them, it was the sky above, withholding the rains they depended on. Now contrast that with Port Royal, the pirate capital swallowed by an earthquake in 1692. Or Helike, the Greek city obliterated when tectonic tension snapped like a rubber band. These weren't slow declines, they were geological ambushes. The difference lies in the triggers. Climate-driven collapses leave clues in sediment, cause layers of salt where freshwater once flowed, or pollen records showing forests replaced by desert. But tectonics leave scars, fault lines slicing through ruins, tsunamis dumping ocean sediment atop city walls, or entire blocks tilted at unnatural angles, frozen mid-collapse. Yet sometimes these forces conspire. Consider the ancient city of Petra, carved into Jordan's cliffs. Its downfall came partly from climate centuries of deforestation and drought, but also from tectonics. Earthquakes shattered its intricate water channels, cutting off the lifelines that let Petra thrive in the desert. Similarly, the Maya faced erratic rainfall, but their cities also sat atop limestone, a porous rock that collapses when groundwater is overused. Here, climate and geology weren't separate threats, they were a one-two punch. What makes this duality so crucial isn't just academic, it's a lens for our own future. Today's coastal cities face rising seas, a climate threat, but many, like Jakarta or San Francisco, also sit on fault lines where tectonic subsidence speeds their sinking. The past teaches us that resilience means preparing for both, the slow squeeze of changing weather and the sudden jolt of shifting plates. Because whether it's the Indus Valley's parched fields or Helike's drowned streets, the message is the same. The Earth doesn't care how we build our civilizations, it will move with or without us. And sometimes, all that's left for future archaeologists to find are the echoes of choices we made too late. Exploring sunken ruins isn't like digging through an ancient city on land. It's more like assembling a jigsaw puzzle while blindfolded, underwater, with pieces scattered across miles of shifting seabed. The first challenge is simple physics. At just 30 feet below the surface, pressure doubles, crushing delicate equipment and limiting dive times. Go deeper, like the ruins of Dwarka lying 60 feet down, and every minute spent examining a stone wall risks decompression sickness. Then there's visibility. Unlike the crystal-clear waters of Pavlopetri, many submerged sites are shrouded in silt or plankton blooms, reducing visibility to inches. Imagine trying to map a city when you can't see your own hands, a reality archaeologists face in places like the Gulf of Combat, where currents constantly stir up sediment. Technology has become the torch illuminating these dark corners of history. Side-scan sonar, for instance, works like an underwater flashlight, sending sound waves that bounce off structures to create detailed maps of the seafloor. This is how researchers identified those geometric patterns off India's coast patterns that might be natural formations or the remnants of a lost city. For deeper exploration, remotely operated vehicles, or ROV, act as robotic archaeologists, equipped with cameras and robotic arms to recover artifacts without risking human lives. When the Yonaguni Monument was discovered, ROVs captured its stair-like terraces in high definition, sparking debates that still rage today. But the real game changer: photogrammetry. By taking thousands of overlapping photos from different angles, software stitches them into 3D models so precise you can measure the width of a Bronze Age pot's rim without touching it. This tech revealed the haunting details of Pavlopetri streets, the wear patterns on doorsteps, the grooves where carts once rolled. Even DNA analysis has joined the toolkit. Sediment cores drilled from submerged Neolithic sites contain traces of ancient pollen, animal bones, and even human bacteria, painting a picture of diets, diseases, and ecosystems long gone. What makes these tools revolutionary isn't just their precision, it's how they're rewriting history. Take the discovery of a 9,000-year-old settlement off Sweden's coast. Sonar images showed wooden stakes driven into the seabed, remnants of fishing traps used by Mesolithic hunter-gatherers. Without sonar, this evidence of early maritime engineering might have stayed buried. Similarly, magnetometers, devices that detect disturbances in Earth's magnetic field, helped locate iron tools in Doggerland's drowned landscapes, proving its inhabitants were more than just primitive foragers. Yet for all our tech, the ocean guards its secrets fiercely. Saltwater corrodes metal artifacts beyond recognition. Organic materials, wood, textiles, even human remains often dissolve entirely, leaving only cryptic stains in the sediment. Currents scatter lighter objects like pottery shards across miles, making it impossible to reconstruct their original context. And then there's the biggest hurdle of all, time. Unlike Pompeii, preserved in a single catastrophic moment, submerged ruins endure centuries of erosion, shipworm infestations, and shifting sands that blur their stories. The triumph of underwater archaeology lies in its patience. It's a field where progress is measured in decades, not seasons. Each fragment recovered, a Harappan seal from the Arabian Sea, a Mycenaean amphora off Turkey, is a whisper from a world reshaped by continental drift. These aren't just relics, they're waypoints in humanity's journey, markers of how we've adapted when the ground literally vanished beneath us. And as technology peels back the ocean's layers, we're learning that the line between myth and history isn't as solid as the seafloor. Sometimes it's just waiting for the right tools to reveal its truth. From hundreds of miles above Earth's surface, satellites are uncovering secrets that divers and sonar could never reach. Off the coast of Cuba, a discovery sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. A series of symmetrical stone formations resting half a mile below the waves, their perfect right angles and circular patterns screaming human hands against the randomness of nature. Captured by side-scan sonar in 2001, these structures stretch across nearly 20 square kilometers of ocean floor, their surfaces so smooth and precisely aligned that some researchers argue they resemble the ruins of a vast urban complex. But here's the catch. If these are man-made, they'd have to date back at least 12,000 years, a time when sea levels were 300 feet lower, long before any known civilization could have built such elaborate architecture. The controversy lies in how we interpret these ghostly shapes. Geologists point to natural explanations: sandstone fracturing under pressure, ancient beach rock eroded by currents, or even the remnants of a submerged volcanic plateau. Yet the patterns persist. What looks like pyramids, roads, even what some claim are glyphs carved into the stone. Satellite imaging adds fuel to the fire. Using multispectral analysis, a technique that captures light wavelengths invisible to the human eye, researchers have mapped what appear to be grid-like layouts beneath the sediment, eerily reminiscent of planned cities like Teotihuacan or Mohenjo-Daro. The problem, proving it. At these depths, retrieving physical evidence costs millions, leaving scientists to debate pixels and sonar shadows. This isn't just about Cuba. From Japan's Yonaguni to India's Gulf of Combat, satellite technology is rewriting the map of human history. NASA's shuttle radar topography mission, originally designed to study geology, accidentally revealed ancient river systems beneath the Sahara, potential migration routes for early humans. Meanwhile, private satellites like those from Planet Labs can now detect subtle changes in ocean color, hinting at submerged structures by tracking phytoplankton blooms that thrive near nutrient-rich stone ruins. The implications are staggering. If just one of these sites is confirmed, it would push back the timeline of complex human societies by millennia. But with every potential discovery comes heated debate. The Bimini Road, near Florida, a line of limestone blocks once thought to be a sunken Atlantis causeway, turned out to be a natural beach rock formation. Similarly, those geometric shapes off Cuba, some argue they're merely parallel joints in the bedrock, a common geological feature. The line between wishful thinking and hard science blurs when dealing with fragments glimpsed through layers of water and time. What makes this technology revolutionary isn't just its ability to spot ruins, it's how it forces us to rethink human resilience. These possible sites cluster in regions where tectonic activity or post-Ice Age flooding would have been catastrophic. If our ancestors built here, they weren't just victims of rising seas, they were pioneers who adapted to, and perhaps even anticipated, geological upheaval. Satellite imaging doesn't just uncover lost cities, it reveals how civilizations rise, fall, and sometimes vanish without a trace, leaving only echoes that satellites can faintly hear beneath the static of the ocean. Venice is drowning in plain sight, not in a sudden cataclysm, but inch by inch, as the Adriatic Sea creeps into its marble palaces and the weight of the city itself presses down on the soft sediments beneath. The difference between Venice and ancient Helike isn't the outcome, it's the timescale. One vanished overnight, the other gives us a front-row seat to the slow-motion version of the same geological fate. And Venice isn't alone. From Jakarta to New Orleans, modern cities are replaying an ancient script, one where human ambition collides with the Earth's restless movements. Take Jakarta, Indonesia's sprawling capital, sinking faster than any other city on Earth. Here, the problem isn't just tectonic subsidence, though the Australian plate grinding against Eurasia certainly doesn't help. It's the desperate drilling of groundwater that's collapsing the very ground beneath millions of people. Satellite images show entire neighborhoods sliding beneath the Java Sea at a rate of 10 inches per year. The government's response, building a giant seawall, essentially trying to out-engineer geology itself. But history whispers a warning. The Indus Valley civilization tried diverting rivers when their waters failed. The Maya dug elaborate reservoirs when droughts struck. Adaptation can buy time, but never immunity. Then there's New Orleans, a city already 7 feet below sea level on average. Its existence made possible only by levees and pumps that battle the Mississippi River's natural tendency to flood. Like the ancient Mesopotamians who relied on the Tigris and Euphrates, New Orleanians live in a precarious balance with the water around them. But the land here isn't just sinking, it's disappearing. The Gulf of Mexico claims a football field's worth of Louisiana wetlands every hour, a combination of sediment starvation from dammed rivers and the relentless rise of sea levels. The parallels to Doggerland's drowning are unnerving. What makes our modern crisis different is the speed. The Indus Valley had centuries to adapt to shifting monsoons. The people of Doggerland retreated gradually as seas rose 2 centimeters per year. Today, Jakarta's northern districts could be uninhabitable by 2050. Miami faces saltwater contamination of its freshwater aquifers as early as 2030. The geological forces at work, subduction, erosion, glacial rebound, haven't changed. But human activity has cranked up the dial, accelerating processes that once unfolded over generations into decades. yet there's a glimmer of hope in the ruins. Pavlopetri's residents raised their floors as waters rose. The Maya shifted from centralized cities to dispersed villages when drought struck. These weren't defeats, they were adaptations. Modern cities are beginning to follow suit. Rotterdam's floating neighborhoods, Tokyo's earthquake-resistant skyscrapers, and Singapore's vertical gardens all represent a new kind of resilience, one that works with geology rather than against it. The lesson from history isn't that civilizations always fall. It's that the ones who survive listen to the land. They notice when the wells turn salty, when the floods come more frequently, when the ground sinks a little more each year. The Earth has always been a shapeshifter, and our cities are just temporary sketches on its surface. The choice isn't whether to fight or flee, it's how to dance with the planet's rhythms, learning the steps from those who came before us. Because the ruins beneath our feet aren't just relics, they're rehearsals for the challenges ahead. Every shattered pottery shard, every crumbled wall, every rusted coin pulled from the earth is a whisper from the past, a clue in the greatest detective story of all time. Reconstructing lost civilizations isn't about finding grand treasures. It's about connecting fragments, like assembling a mosaic where half the tiles are missing. Take the Rosetta Stone, that unassuming slab of black basalt discovered in 1799. To the untrained eye, it was just a rock with 3 scripts carved into it. But to archaeologists, it was the key that cracked open ancient Egypt's secrets. For centuries, hieroglyphs had been a mystery, their meanings locked away. Then this single stone, with identical text in Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphics, became the cipher that finally let us hear the pharaoh's voices across thousands of years. But not every breakthrough comes from something as dramatic as the Rosetta Stone. Sometimes it's the mundane details that tell the most vivid stories. In the ruins of Pompeii, archaeologists found a loaf of bread still inside an oven, its carbonized crust preserving the baker's fingerprints. In the submerged streets of Pavlopetri, a child's footprint pressed into wet clay 5,000 years ago speaks louder than any royal decree. These aren't just artifacts, they're frozen moments, tiny windows into the daily lives of people who laughed, worked, and loved in worlds now buried beneath our feet. The process is painstaking. Imagine trying to reconstruct a novel from a handful of torn pages, each scrap found miles apart. That's what archaeologists faced with the Indus Valley civilization. For decades, their script remained undeciphered, their cities silent. Then, in the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, they uncovered a tiny seal depicting a horned figure surrounded by animals, a possible prototype of the Hindu god Shiva. Nearby, a network of drains and wells revealed a society obsessed with cleanliness millennia before modern sanitation. Piece by piece, a picture emerged, a culture that traded with Mesopotamia, worshipped proto-Hindu deities, and built cities with a precision that rivals modern urban planning. Technology has revolutionized this puzzle work. LiDAR scans piercing through jungle canopies have uncovered entire Mayan megalopolises in Guatemala, their sprawling networks of roads and farms invisible from the ground. DNA analysis of skeletons in Scandinavia traced migration patterns across Europe, showing how cultures blended through conquest and trade. Even humble dirt holds secrets. Isotope analysis of soil from Viking graves can reveal what the deceased ate for their last meal, pinpointing their homeland or tracing their travels. Yet for every mystery solved, 10 more remain. The Voynich manuscript, its bizarre illustrations and unknown language baffling cryptographers for centuries. The Linear, a script of the Minoans, still stubbornly undeciphered despite decades of effort. These gaps remind us how much we've lost, but also how much we've gained. Every fragment rescued from the earth is a victory against oblivion, a voice pulled back from the silence. and sometimes the most ordinary object, a broken comb, a worn sandal, a charred grain of wheat, can tell the most extraordinary story. Because history isn't just about kings and battles, it's about the countless unnamed lives that shaped our world, their echoes faint but persistent, waiting for us to listen. Diving into the depths to uncover lost cities isn't just a technical challenge, it's a moral tightrope. Every time an archaeologist brushes silt from a sunken artifact or a remotely operated vehicle probes a shipwreck, they're faced with an uncomfortable question: are we recovering history or robbing a grave? Take the Titanic, resting 12,000 feet below the Atlantic. Since its discovery in 1985, the wreck has been picked over for relics: china plates, leather bags, even a chunk of the hull. To some, these objects are priceless pieces of a historical puzzle. To others, they're tombstones in a mass grave where 1,500 people met their end. The debate isn't just academic. In 2023, a controversial expedition to retrieve the ship's Marconi radio sparked outrage, with descendants of victims arguing that the site should be left undisturbed as a memorial. This tension isn't unique to shipwrecks. In the Pacific, indigenous communities have fought to protect ancestral burial sites submerged by rising seas, where human remains and sacred objects lie vulnerable to looters. Off the coast of Okinawa, the Yonaguni Monument stirs similar unease. If those terraces are proven to be man-made, excavating them could rewrite the history of human migration. But what if they're also part of a spiritual landscape, tied to oral traditions that modern science barely understands? The dilemma cuts to the core of archaeology's purpose. Is our goal to collect knowledge at any cost, or to steward the past with reverence? Even preservation raises ethical quandaries. Lifting artifacts from saltwater often dooms them. Iron corrodes explosively when exposed to air after centuries underwater. Wooden beams, stable in low-oxygen environments, crumble to dust within hours on land. Conservation labs can stabilize these objects, but the process is costly and imperfect. Meanwhile, leaving them in place risks destruction from trawling nets, industrial dredging, or even curious tourists. The ancient Roman city of Baiae, now an underwater park near Naples, faces this paradox daily. Visitors can snorkel above its mosaic floors and statues, but the very act of tourism accelerates erosion. Perhaps the most haunting cases involve human remains. In 2018, researchers mapping a submerged cave in Mexico stumbled on the skeleton of a teenage girl who died 13,000 years ago. Her bones, perfectly preserved in the mineral-rich water, offered revolutionary insights into early American migration. But she also had a name, Naya, given by scientists who studied her DNA. Critics asked, would we treat a modern cemetery with the same detachment? The line between research and violation blurs when the dead can't speak for themselves. Navigating these waters requires more than just sonar and scuba gear. It demands humility. Some countries, like Norway, have declared sunken WW2 wrecks protected war graves, off-limits to salvagers. Others, like Egypt, partner with archaeologists to recover artifacts while training local divers to safeguard their heritage. The solution isn't to stop exploring, it's to ask at every step who the past truly belongs to. After all, the ruins beneath the waves aren't just relics. They're someone's home, someone's tragedy, someone's sacred ground, and that's a weight no amount of technology can lift. The ocean's secrets are no match for the digital eyes of modern technology. Where divers once groped through murky waters, artificial intelligence now sifts through mountains of sonar data, spotting patterns invisible to the human gaze. Off the coast of Tunisia, algorithms recently flagged a peculiar arrangement of stones buried under layers of sediment, a discovery that turned out to be the foundations of Neapolis, a Roman city swallowed by a tsunami in the 4th century. The AI didn't just find a ruin, it reconstructed an entire urban grid, predicting where streets, temples, and harbors should lie based on the layout of other Roman ports. This isn't just faster archaeology, it's archaeology with a sixth sense, piecing together puzzles we didn't even know were missing. But the real magic happens when these tools collaborate. Take photogrammetry, the art of stitching thousands of underwater photos into precise 3D models. In Greece, researchers combined this technique with virtual reality to let anyone walk through Pavlopetri's sunken streets, examining pottery shards and door frames as if they were there in person. Meanwhile, in the Baltic Sea, magnetometers dragged behind ships have revealed the ghostly outlines of Viking ship burials, their iron rivets still perturbing Earth's magnetic field after 1,000 years. These aren't isolated technologies, they're threads in a growing net, each one catching fragments of the past that would have slipped through older methods. The frontier of discovery now lies in fusion. LiDAR, once limited to terrestrial surveys, has been adapted to peer through shallow coastal waters, mapping drowned landscapes like Doggerland with laser precision. Machine learning cross-references these maps with ancient climate data, predicting where human settlements likely stood before the seas rose. In the Gulf of Cambay, this combo pinpointed a potential Harappan harbor, now under 100 feet of water, its existence hinted at by subtle depressions in the seabed that algorithms recognized as artificial basins. The result, a new golden age of underwater archaeology, where every expedition is guided by digital whispers from the past. Yet for all their power, these tools raise new questions. When an AI reconstructs a city it's never seen, how much is fact and how much is algorithmic guesswork? The debate rages over a sunken pyramid near the Azores, a symmetrical peak some claim is man-made, while others argue it's a perfectly natural volcanic formation. Technology can reveal, but it can also deceive, especially when wielded by those eager to confirm myths. The balance lies in humility, letting data lead rather than desire. The future of discovery isn't just about better gadgets, it's about smarter connections. Imagine satellites tracking shifts in ocean currents that expose long-buried ruins, or drones working in swarms to map entire coastlines in days. Picture neural networks trained on every known shipwreck design, instantly classifying newly found wrecks by era and origin. We're not just finding lost cities faster, we're learning to listen to the Earth itself, as it slowly yields stories written in stone, sand, and sediment. And sometimes the most thrilling discoveries aren't the grand palaces or golden treasures, but the quiet, everyday moments, preserved by chance and now resurrected by silicon and light. The story of Atlantis didn't end when Plato first wrote it down, it was just beginning. For over 2,000 years, this sunken kingdom has haunted our imagination, inspiring everything from blockbuster movies to conspiracy theories. But why? What is it about lost cities that grips us so tightly? Maybe it's the thrill of the unsolved mystery, the tantalizing possibility that somewhere under the waves, an ancient metropolis waits to be rediscovered. Or maybe it's something deeper, a primal fear that our own cities, our own civilizations, could one day vanish just as completely. Look at modern pop culture, and you'll see sunken cities everywhere. Films like Aquaman turn Atlantis into a glittering underwater empire, while video games like Tomb Raider send players diving for lost ruins. Even Disney's Mona draws from Polynesian legends of Te Fiti, a land swallowed by the sea. These aren't just entertaining stories, they're echoes of indigenous traditions like the Aboriginal Dreamtime tales of flooded coasts or the Maori stories of Te Hono Wenua, the land that slipped away. These narratives span continents and centuries, yet they all share a common thread: the idea that the Earth remembers what we've forgotten. The fascination isn't just about spectacle, it's about survival. Oral histories passed down by the Haida people of the Pacific Northwest describe a time when their islands were much larger, before rising waters forced them to adapt. Similar stories persist in the Maldives, where elders speak of ancestors who built their homes on higher ground as the seas crept inland. These aren't myths, they're survival manuals, coded warnings from generations who lived through geological upheaval. Today, scientists study these traditions, cross-referencing them with climate data and discovering startling accuracy in details that were once dismissed as folklore. But the cultural impact goes deeper than cautionary tales. Sunken cities force us to confront our own impermanence. Walking through modern Venice with its Aqua Alta flooding Piazza San Marco, or visiting New Orleans' sinking neighborhoods, we're face to face with the same forces that erased Helike or Pavlopetri. There's a reason dystopian fiction loves submerged skylines. They're the ultimate symbol of hubris, a reminder that no civilization, no matter how advanced, is immune to nature's whims. Yet there's hope in these stories too. Every time a filmmaker reimagines Atlantis or a gamer explores a digital Yonaguni, they're keeping these lost worlds alive in our collective memory. The ruins beneath the waves aren't just relics, they're mirrors. They reflect our fears, our creativity, and our stubborn refusal to let the past stay buried. And perhaps that's the most powerful legacy of all, not the cities we've lost, but the stories we refuse to let go. The line between groundbreaking discovery and wishful thinking can be razor thin when it comes to lost civilizations. Take the Bimini Road, a striking formation of limestone blocks stretching over half a mile in the Bahamas. When divers first spotted these perfectly aligned stones in the 1960s, headlines declared Atlantis had been found. The symmetry seemed too precise, the angles too sharp to be nature's handiwork, but science tells a different story. Geologists later confirmed these were beach rock, a natural phenomenon where coastal sediment cements into slabs that fracture into clean, geometric patterns under tidal pressure. The road wasn't a pathway to myth, just an exquisite quirk of geology. This tension between theory and evidence plays out across dozens of alleged sunken cities. Off the coast of Japan, the Yonaguni Monument's terraced formations spark debates with every new dive. True believers point to its right angles and what appear to be carved steps as proof of an ancient metropolis. Skeptics counter that sandstone naturally fractures along plains, creating artificial-looking shapes without human intervention. The truth likely lies somewhere in between, a natural formation possibly modified by humans, like a quarry or ceremonial site later submerged by rising seas. What makes these cases so compelling isn't just the mystery, it's how they reveal our tendency to see intention in randomness, to fill gaps in history with stories that resonate. Then there's the Gulf of Combat controversy. In 2001, Indian scientists announced the discovery of submerged structures with urban features, dating back 9,000 years, potentially predating known civilizations. Sonar images showed grid-like patterns, and artifacts recovered from the site included pottery and wood fragments. But critics quickly raised doubts. The artifacts could be natural stones reshaped by currents, while the dating methods faced scrutiny for potential contamination. Without clear evidence of tools, construction techniques, or human remains, the claim remains in limbo, a reminder that extraordinary discoveries demand extraordinary proof. The lesson here isn't to dismiss all theories of lost civilizations, but to approach them with disciplined curiosity. For every Bimini Road debunked, there's a real Pavlopetri or Doggerland verified sites that rewrite history. The key is evidence that withstands cross-examination. pottery with distinct cultural markings, tools showing deliberate craftsmanship, or human-altered landscapes that couldn't form naturally. When marine archaeologists explore Dwarka, they don't just look for stone walls, they analyze sediment layers for signs of sudden inundation, match pottery styles to known periods, and trace submerged river channels that align with ancient texts. What separates myth from history often comes down to patience. The city of Helaik was considered legend until archaeologists matched its description to a site buried under coastal sediment. Troy's existence was debated until Heinrich Schliemann unearthed its layers in Turkey. The tools of verification stratigraphy, carbon dating, contextual analysis are less glamorous than treasure hunting, but they're the only way to turn speculation into scholarship. This balancing act extends beyond academia. Popular media often amplifies fringe theories for clicks, leaving the public to sift fact from fantasy. The next time you see a headline about a lost city found, ask the same questions scientists do. Where's the peer-reviewed data? Are there alternative explanations? Does the evidence fit broader historical patterns? The ocean's depths hold countless secrets, but not all of them are human-made. And that's okay, because the real wonder isn't in proving every legend true, but in letting the evidence guide us, even when it leads to unexpected places. Sometimes the greatest discoveries in archaeology happen not because of careful planning, but because someone forgot their diving weights. That's essentially how French archaeologist Frank Gaudiot stumbled upon Heracleion, Egypt's legendary lost city, in the year 2000. He wasn't even looking for it. His team had been surveying the Mediterranean floor near Alexandria for Napoleon's sunken fleet when their magnetometer, a device that detects metal, went wild. Instead of shipwrecks, they found colossal statues of pharaohs emerging from the silt like ghosts, their faces staring up through 1,500 years of seawater. One diver later described brushing sand from a stone slab, only to reveal hieroglyphs that hadn't been read since the city vanished beneath the waves in the 8th century. The thrill of that moment, the sheer disbelief, is what makes underwater exploration so electric. Then there's the story of Manolis Koutsouflakis, a Greek archaeologist who discovered an entire Roman shipwreck off the island of Forni. Because local fishermen kept handing him ancient pottery they'd snagged in their nets, what started as casual curiosity turned into one of the Mediterranean's most significant maritime finds. 53 shipwrecks in just 22 square miles, each one a time capsule of trade routes and daily life. One vessel was carrying a cargo of figs so well preserved you could still see their seeds. These aren't just academic breakthroughs, they're visceral, human moments where the past reaches up and grabs you by the wrist. But perhaps no story captures the magic of accidental discovery like that of Kimiya Yui, a Japanese astronaut who spotted strange geometric shapes off Okinawa's coast while training in a flight simulator. His curiosity led scientists to investigate what turned out to be the Yonaguni Monument, sparking debates that still rage today. Whether natural or man-made, these finds share a common thread. They remind us that Earth's greatest secrets often reveal themselves to those willing to look where others haven't. Behind every eureka moment lies years of quiet dedication. Take the team studying Pavlopetri, the world's oldest submerged city. Archaeologist John Henderson spent a decade painstakingly mapping its streets with a measuring tape and sketchpad before 3D scanners could do the job in days. His reward, standing in waist-deep water, tracing finger grooves left by Bronze Age potters in clay bricks that hadn't been touched for millennia. These discoveries don't just rewrite textbooks, they rewrite lives. Divers describe the chill of realizing a stone they're holding was last touched by someone who worshipped forgotten gods, sailed uncharted seas, or fled a rising tide they couldn't comprehend. The ocean doesn't give up its secrets easily. Sometimes it takes a fisherman's net snagging on a statue, a stray comment about weird rocks from a local diver, or even a wrong turn with a submersible. What connects these stories isn't just luck. It's the willingness to pay attention when the universe whispers, because the next lost city might not be found on some grand expedition, but by a kid skipping school to snorkel, or a scientist who forgot to check the batteries on their GPS. The past is down there waiting, and sometimes all it takes is someone curious enough to listen. The same forces that drowned Doggerland and swallowed Helike are at work today, but this time we're the ones turning the gears. Ancient civilizations faced rising seas measured in centimeters per century. Today, coastal cities from Miami to Jakarta watch the ocean climb inches per decade, with human fingerprints all over the tide gauges. The difference: those past disasters unfolded over generations, giving societies time to adapt or flee. Now, the speed of change leaves no room for gradual retreat. Venice's Aqua Alta floods aren't just picturesque inconveniences, they're echoes of Pavlopetri's fate, playing out in real time on smartphone cameras instead of sediment layers. What makes our modern crisis unique isn't just the pace, it's the cocktail of causes. Where tectonic shifts once sank cities like Port Royal, today's subsidence comes from concrete skyscrapers pressing down on soft deltas and groundwater pumps draining the very earth that supports us. Tokyo's towering skyline has compressed its underlying sediments by 15 feet in a century, while Mexico City sinks at a rate rivaling ancient Helike's collapse. Add melting glaciers and thermal ocean expansion, both direct results of fossil fuel emissions, and you have a recipe for inundation that would make even the builders of Dwarka's seawalls shudder. Yet history offers unexpected hope. The Maya didn't vanish when drought struck, they decentralized, shifting from grand cities to resilient villages. The people of Doggerland didn't fight the rising seas. They adapted their tools, turning from harpoons to nets as forests became fishing grounds. Modern solutions are rediscovering these ancient strategies. Rotterdam's floating neighborhoods, inspired by prehistoric lake dwellings, rise with floodwaters instead of resisting them. Bangladesh's farmers, much like their Indus Valley ancestors, are reviving salt-tolerant rice varieties as seawater encroaches on paddies. The warning etched in sunken ruins isn't that civilizations always fall, it's that the ones who survive listen to the land. When the Harappan's rivers dried up, they didn't double down on unsustainable irrigation. They moved east toward the Ganges. Today, Louisiana's coastal master plan takes cues from this wisdom, strategically abandoning some areas to the Mississippi's natural land-building processes while fortifying critical hubs. It's not surrender, it's strategic adaptation, a lesson written in the very sediments beneath our feet. The most haunting parallel lies in the stories we tell. Just as Aboriginal Australians preserved memories of drowned coastlines in songlines for 12,000 years, Pacific Islanders today document their vanishing homelands through digital storytelling. These aren't just records, they're survival manuals for future generations, because whether the water comes from melting ice sheets or the collapse of a tectonic plate, the outcome is the same. The map redraws itself, and humanity must choose between clinging to the past or navigating the new reality. The ruins beneath the waves aren't just relics, they're the most urgent climate models we have. Every time a looter's dredge scrapes the ocean floor or a tourist pockets a pottery shard from a sunken ruin, we don't just lose an artifact, we lose a page from humanity's diary. Underwater heritage sites aren't time capsules waiting to be cracked open for treasure. They're fragile, irreplaceable libraries where every broken amphora or corroded tool holds clues to how our ancestors lived, traded, and survived. The problem: once these sites are disturbed, their context vanishes forever. A bronze statue ripped from the seabed might look stunning in a private collection, but divorced from the shipwreck it sank with, it can't tell us about ancient trade routes, metallurgy techniques, or the lives of the sailors who went down with it. UNESCO Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage, adopted in 2001, is a global effort to shield these vulnerable sites. It's not just about banning treasure hunters, though that's crucial. It's about recognizing that sunken cities and shipwrecks belong to humanity, not to whoever has the deepest pockets or the fastest dredge. Countries like Spain and Greece have led the charge, recovering looted artifacts from auction houses and employing underwater drones to monitor vulnerable ruins. In Egypt, authorities recently thwarted an attempt to smuggle a Ptolemaic-era Sphinx head found by divers near Alexandria. These aren't isolated victories. They're part of a growing understanding that preserving underwater heritage isn't a niche academic concern. It's a race against time, greed, and the sea itself. But preservation isn't just about stopping bad actors. Even well-meaning actions can cause harm. Off the coast of Turkey, the ancient wreck of Uluburun, a Bronze Age ship carrying everything from African ebony to Baltic amber, was meticulously excavated in the 1980s. Yet some artifacts disintegrated upon exposure to air, their secrets lost because conservation science hadn't yet developed ways to stabilize them. Today, protocols emphasize in situ preservation whenever possible. At Pavlopetri, archaeologists left pottery shards exactly where they lay, digitally mapping them instead. The logic is simple. Sometimes, the best way to protect the past is to leave it undisturbed until we have the tools to study it properly. Local communities are emerging as unexpected heroes in this fight. In Indonesia, fishermen near the 1,000-year-old Java Sea shipwreck now report suspicious diving activity to authorities after realizing the wreck's ceramic cargo helps scholars trace ancient maritime routes. In Mexico, Maya descendants work with archaeologists to document submerged cenotes sacred to their ancestors, blending traditional knowledge with sonar technology. This shift from seeing sunken ruins as salvage opportunities to recognizing them as collective memory is vital, because these sites aren't just curiosities, they're bridges. The Roman coins found off Sri Lanka rewrite histories of Indian Ocean trade. The Neolithic canoes submerged in Florida Springs reveal how early humans migrated across continents. The clock is ticking. Acidifying oceans accelerate metal corrosion, while deep-sea trawling scrapes entire archaeological layers into oblivion. Yet there's hope in innovative solutions. Belgium recently declared its entire North Sea floor a protected archaeological zone, using AI to flag disturbances in real time. Meanwhile, virtual reality reconstructions like the digital twin of Sweden's sunken Mesolithic settlement allow the public to explore fragile sites without touching them. The lesson from these efforts is clear. We don't have to choose between access and preservation. With care, creativity, and respect, we can honor these drowned worlds while keeping their stories alive for generations who will never dive into their depths. Because the true value of a lost city isn't in its gold or marble, it's in the whispers it leaves behind, if only we're patient enough to listen. As we stand on the shorelines of history, gazing at the waves that now hide lost cities and forgotten kingdoms, one truth becomes undeniable. The ground beneath us has never been still, and neither has our story. The slow dance of continents isn't just a geological process. It's the unseen hand that's written and erased entire chapters of human civilization. From the drowned forests of Doggerland, where Mesolithic families once tracked game through valleys now buried under the North Sea, to the golden spires of Dwarka, whispered about in ancient texts and now emerging from the Arabian Sea's depths, these sunken worlds are more than ruins. They're mirrors reflecting our own fragility in the face of Earth's relentless transformations. What's haunting isn't just how these civilizations fell, it's how ordinary their fates were. The people of Pavlopetri didn't know their city was sinking until their floors were permanently wet. The traders of Heracleion didn't realize their bustling port would one day be a diver's curiosity, its statues of gods and pharaohs staring up through 1,500 years of silt. These weren't apocalyptic events, they were slow unravelings, the kind we might miss until it's too late. And that's the lesson etched into every submerged stone: adaptation isn't optional. The Maya shifted from cities to villages when drought struck. The Harappans migrated east as their rivers dried. They didn't fight the inevitable, they flowed with it, leaving behind blueprints for resilience we're only now learning to read. Yet there's hope in these stories too. Every time archaeologists brush sand from a Bronze Age tool or sonar reveals a drowned city's grid, we're reminded that the past isn't truly lost, just waiting to be rediscovered. The same technologies mapping Sunderland's ancient riverbeds are now helping Jakarta prepare for rising seas. The lessons carved into Helix's ruins inform earthquake-resistant engineering in Tokyo. History isn't a dead end, it's a compass pointing toward solutions hidden in the layers of time. So as you walk along a beach or gaze at a coastline, remember, the Earth's crust is still moving. The plates beneath us grind and shift, mountains rise and erode, and the seas continue their slow ascent. The cities we build today may one day be someone else's underwater mystery, their artifacts puzzled over by future explorers. But that's the beauty of it. We're not just passive observers of this process, we're participants, shaping and being shaped by the planet's endless transformation. The lost cities of the past aren't just warnings, they're invitations to look deeper, think longer, and tread lighter, because the next chapter of this story isn't written yet, and it's ours to shape. Which sunken civilization speaks to you? Is it the haunting streets of Pavlopetri, frozen in time, the legendary Atlantis, its truth still debated, or perhaps Doggerland, where a single deer antler carved with geometric patterns connects us to hands that held it 8,000 years ago? Drop your thoughts below and let's keep unraveling these mysteries together. And if you're hungry for more tales of Earth's hidden histories, hit subscribe, because the past is down there, waiting, and every discovery is just the beginning.